When Melania Trump entered the arena for the first time since the convention started, she entered much like he did, you know, with a camera on her. There was fanfare, but she was not announced. She went up to the family seating area, but he had already gone. Presumably, it was a couple of speakers in advance of his speech, but the two were never together until that moment right there. Now, he did call out to her during his speech, giving credit to his amazing wife. So much in the buildup to this, from all the people we heard from through much of the night, is that we're going to see a different side of Donald Trump. And I think we did in a lot of respects. I mean, he went on and on and on. At one point, he did call Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, crazy. He called her Crazy Nancy. But that seemed like, not much of a flashback to the pre-assassination attempt Donald Trump. I mean, when he accepted the nomination, he said, "We rise together or we fall apart. I'm running to be the president of all of America, not half of America. There's no victory in winning half. So tonight, I proudly accept your nomination for president of the United States."
Do you think there was enough said about unifying the country? Because remember, there were reports that he ripped up his original speech that he was going to give tonight, but in light of the assassination attempt on last Saturday, he says, you know what, we need to talk more about unifying the country.
Well, he got off to that kind of start, but then he got into the politics about why he should be elected. But he sort of stayed on point for the most part, I think, that that's what's best for everybody. Now, it's his vision of what's best for everybody. But, I heard the Crazy Nancy line, and I didn't hear a whole lot more than that. It was fairly gripping, right, when he recounted exactly what happened when he got hit by that bullet and had turned his head to look at the statistics on the border and immigration, which, he throws a little braggadocio in there too. That's who he is. But this, just recounting that story, and he said he's only going to tell it once.
He says it's too painful to tell it again.
Blood pouring everywhere, but with the Secret Service agents on top of him, he said, in a strange way, I felt very safe because of them, but also he said, because I had God on my side, and he really felt that. I don't know. It
was a calmer, tamer Trump than what we were accustomed to seeing. I totally agree with you there. He was very reserved in his remarks, but he did take obviously some jabs at the Biden administration, several, and some of the comments that he made about China. Some of the comments that he made.
Well, talking about so many of the policies that he wants to change, and one recent one that he was on for a long time was this EV mandate that recently this Biden administration had put in March, that they want to get a lot of the cars built in America to become electric vehicles. So that was one thing that he went on the Biden administration about. But yeah, I took some notes. Bring down interest rates. He talked about drilling in the USA, something China's not able to do with our oil reserve here. Need fiercer voices in office as well. He talked about Biden maybe not being able to stand up to Putin or these other world leaders. He talked about how his friendship with Kim Jong-un. It was very interesting what he was getting to, but it was an interesting night and 90 minutes worth of Donald Trump there.
All of that stuff, right? But that's sort of politics. Those are political issues. He's going to talk about them, and he's going to hit them hard. But
it's pretty emotional. Did you see the people crying?
Yes, a big difference.
Audience? Yeah.
And one moment you can't get past. It was where he went to, and it's showmanship. But he walked across the stage and he kissed
the helmet.
The firefighter's gear of Corey Comparatore, the fireman who was killed at the rally.
Yeah, he was protecting his wife and daughter
and
during the shooting.
all the money that has
more than $6 million for those three
shooting victims.
Yeah. So it has been an interesting night.
Yes.
But the Republican Party, the ticket is set.
Yes.
Right. We'll have a wrap on some of the buildup coming up on the late edition of Fox 2 News.
Are you ready for the Democratic National Convention?
Yeah, here we go.